Rivers is going to have Damian Lillard run very fast out of town. Does he help them win? You're under 500. Aaron Judge helps the Yankees win. You're paying the player $300 million. You better be sure that guy's going to help you get over the hump. For some reason, this guy is completely lost on calling plays. Maybe he's a therapist. Did you see Lamar Jackson cry to the ref? No, he didn't. Hello. Welcome to a new show of the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, the Speedster, Mr. Speedy Petey, executive producer, Mr. Aaron Fishman, and Scoops, Tommy Scoops as our sports minute. 631-672-3108 is the number to call. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out our local listings for all our shows is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. At 8 o'clock, we'll be talking to former 12-year NFL linebacker Chris Draft. He's been on our show before. Very, 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 very good personality, and we really love Chris. And he's been very, very busy going around the country talking and speaking at so many different events. So we're very happy to have Chris on the show. And at 9:30, we will be talking to ex-Vikings linebacker, current Vikings Radio Network broadcaster, Pete Bursick. And everybody that knows Pete Bursick, he was a great linebacker when he played for the Minnesota Vikings. Had a very good, long NFL career. He's been on our show before, and we've had a lot of fun with him. So Pete loves to come on our show. The football season is here. He'll talk about Viking football and New York Jet. He's a New York Jet hater. Okay. So,
I told him to prepare all your Jets roast now and all the Sam Darnold praise for all the Jets fans.
As we all know, Sam Darnold is the starting quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. So
MVP.
I don't know about MVP, but it'll be fun. It will be fun with Pete. Pete is always interesting and a very good personality. And if you haven't checked him out, go check him out on social media. He has got a huge following on Twitter and Instagram. And I'm telling you, every time he comes on a show, he's either in his basement with a chalkboard or he's in his car in a dark, Plymouth or whatever the hell he hangs out.
Yeah, we were supposed to have Dalvin Cook in there with him.
They didn't go to the Super Bowl. If they went to the Super Bowl, then Dalvin Cook would be in the trunk doing a show.
Dalvin Cook apparently played in the regular season for the Jets.
And Dalvin Cook, where is he playing?
Dallas
Cowboys now. I'm sure he loves that.
Dalvin Cook and Zeke Elliott.
Micah Parsons said on the Bleacher Report that Anthony Edwards is one of few NBA players he could see playing in the NFL. He added that Edwards was a longtime football player that turned to basketball later in his youth. He says Edwards' size would make him a good running back, a linebacker, or even a bigger-bodied wide receiver. He added that he could see himself being an NBA player, but not an NBA superstar. Austin Rivers said a few months ago that he could see an NBA or NBA players playing in the NFL, but not the other way around. J.J. Watt and other NFL players took shots at Rivers for his take, referencing that the physicality difference of the two sports are completely different. Here's the thing. And I like Micah Parsons. I love his podcast. I don't know if anybody's checked out his podcast. He's interesting. His takes are crazy. But that's what draws people to listen to Micah. And Micah, even off the field, when he gets interviewed all over, the NFL after the games or after the game that he has 2 or 3 sacks, he speaks very highly of himself and his teammates. The problem with Micah Parsons is some of his takes are just completely outlandish. And we all know that Anthony Edwards was a great football player. He was actually a fantastic football player in high school. And yes, he didn't start playing basketball until later in his high school career. I think it was like in 9th or 10th grade, he started playing basketball. But he's so athletic and so gifted and so talented with his ability. Anthony Edwards transitioned into basketball, got a basketball scholarship, and we all know what happened. Anthony Edwards was the number 1 pick in the NBA. He started playing basketball, 4 or 5 years before he played in the NBA. He was always a good football player. But to say that Anthony Edwards could play in the NFL right now is ridiculous. The training that these players have to put their bodies through every single year in the offseason, working out, lifting, all the different squats and leg exercises that they need to do, running. Now, everybody's going to say, well, what about basketball? He's running on the basketball court. Yes, it's a different style of running. You're playing on turf. You're playing on grass. You're playing against 300-pound guys, 350-pound linemen. It's different. And Micah knows. And Micah thinks that he can play in the NBA. He's out of his mind. I don't want to hear about it. I saw him at the NBA All-Star game, the celebrity game, and he won the All-Star. What did he win? The MVP?
Celebrity, yeah.
The celebrity MVP. He scored 32 points. Stephen A. Smith was coaching against him. And what was it? Shannon Sharp was the other coach. I don't want to hear it. He played against, I don't know, musicians, actors, actresses, other NFL players like C.J. Stroud, who actually played very well as well. Micah Parsons cannot play in the NBA. But Micah Parsons is a fantastic football player. Now, it's different. Athletics, and it's like saying an NFL player can skate on the ice and be an NHL player. It's not easy. The athletic ability you need to have and the training that you need to put your body through for a significant amount of time. I know all about it. The training was just absolutely terrible. I mean, every single day I was skating for 3 hours. Almost 350 days a year, I was skating 3 hours a day. And I would have to get up in the morning and go to the rink to get my time on the ice. And at night, I would be playing hockey games. And that's 3 hours on the ice. That's 6 hours on the ice every other day. It's a lot. Puts a lot of stress on your ankles, your knees, your feet, your toes. It's cold. It's hell, too, by the way. And I like the cold. Micah Parsons is a fantastic talent. I really think he's going to be a good analyst. I really do. When he's done with his career, just like Tony Romo is, I don't know if he could do play-by-play, but I could see Micah Parsons on a radio show. I absolutely see. If Bart Scott could do it, he could do it just as well. Because at least Micah Parsons is entertaining what he's talking about. And it's a little crazy. And he actually knows what he's talking about. Bart Scott doesn't know what from his tailbone. He doesn't have absolutely any idea. If it's not football, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I just think that to come out with an outlandish story on Bleacher Report and say that Anthony Edwards could play in the NFL right now, that's ridiculous. Anthony Edwards cannot play in the NFL right now. Now, if he steps away from basketball and puts the time in for a year and a half, 2 years, and gets his body in shape, puts a little bit of weight on, yeah, Anthony Edwards could play in the NFL. He could. He's athletic. He could figure it out. He did play, AAU, and all that other stuff. He was a good football player. But to play in the NFL, that's crazy. It's not easy to make the NFL. How many players are in the NFL right now? 1,696. That's how many players are in the NFL. You know how many people get drafted every year? Over 270. You know how many undrafted players are welcome to camp? Probably 12 to 13 players on each team. You know how many of those players actually make the team? If they're lucky, 1. I'm just telling you, it's not easy to play professional sports. It isn't. You got to be the best of the best. And for Micah Parsons, and Micah Parsons knows how hard it is. Come on. Micah knows how hard it is to make it to the NFL. And he's so talented. He really is. But to come out with some of these outlandish takes, it only tells me one thing. Is he really believing this? Or he's really just trying to sell something on his podcast for people to listen? Because the honest God truth, I cannot listen to something like that if he comes out with something outlandish like that.
Yeah, and Austin Rivers already started the trend. And
but I don't even want to even get into Austin Rivers.
Made it look bad
enough. That guy wasn't even a good basketball player. Then again, talk about NBA players playing in the NFL. Why? At least J.J. Watt is a Hall of Famer. At least J.J. Watt has something to argue about because he was a sensational player. I do not want to hear or even want to bring up Austin Rivers. As you saw when I brought it up on what you sent to me, I don't even want to talk about Austin Rivers because I don't think Austin Rivers knows what the hell he's talking about.
Your second least favorite Duke Blue Devil after John Shire.
First of all, I'm not a big fan of his father, as everybody knows. Yeah. I can't stand Doc Rivers. I think he's so overrated as a head coach. And he won one NBA championship with, I don't know, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Rajon Rondo, and one of the greatest three-point shooters of all time in Ray Allen. I'm sorry. I'm not going to give him any credit on that championship. I'm just saying.
There's another guy who probably shouldn't run his mouth as much on that team, Kendrick Perkins.
It's an outlandish take. Micah Parsons coming out and saying Anthony Edwards can play in the NFL. It's crazy. He's athletic. He's great. He's so gifted. He's so fun to watch. There's no question. He's a great player to watch on an NBA basketball court. On an NFL football field, come on, guys. There are so many great athletic players that are not even playing, don't even make the roster. There were like 3 or 4 guys that were drafted. Jaguars drafted guys in the 6th and 5th round. They didn't even make the roster. And they're so athletic. They ran one of the guys, I think, one of the wide receivers that they drafted in, I think in the 6th or 7th round, ran a 4.5 or 4.4. You think Anthony Edwards can run a 4.4?
Tough to tell, but even so.
He can run a 4.4. That's ridiculous.
Even so, there's more to it than just speed altogether. And NBA speed and NFL speed, you see 2 very different things. For one thing, the NFL field is 6 times the length of an NBA court at least, and then width is even more that. There's more concepts that are involved in the game. It's a completely different thing. And especially in today's NFL, where the offense is so complicated with a lot of these schemes, a lot of these route trees for wide receivers, and Micah Parsons is saying Anthony Edwards could be a big-bodied receiver. How many big-bodied receivers that played football their whole career have had trouble having longevity in a quicker, faster NFL?
It's as bad a take as Tyreek Hill coming out and saying that he could beat Noah Lyles in a race. And then we've had people on the show actually believe it. It's ridiculous. Tyreek Hill cannot beat the fastest man in the world, okay? I'm sorry. I don't care. He could call him a cheetah. He could call himself a tiger, a lion. I don't care what he calls himself. He's not beating Noah Lyles in, a 55-yard, 55-meter, 100-meter, 200-meter. He doesn't stand a chance.
Nope. And that's an even difference when it comes to
a 40-yard dash. He wouldn't beat him.
Yeah, that's an even difference of just raw speed at its own. And there's so much more in terms of football, the concepts that are involved. And especially, again, a position like running back, which Micah Parsons claimed Anthony Edwards could play. Like Bilal Powell said when he's been on our show, you have to learn so many different things as a running back. It's not just running the ball. There's 5 different moves you got to know. There's blocking schemes. There's receiving itself. And then you're playing linebacker. You're not knowing what's going to happen with the offense. You're trying to read the offense. That's oftentimes the captain of the defense. You're saying Anthony Edwards could be a good player at a middle linebacker position because of his size. Okay, his size is one thing. What you have to learn on the football field is a completely different thing when you're dealing with 11 versus 5 and a complicated game in comparison to basketball. Basketball, there's a reason we say basketball is the easiest sport where you could win with just like 2 individuals. Like football, you can't do that kind of thing.
How about Micah Parsons? If his grandfather was a sheep herder, maybe Micah Parsons could be a sheep herder. Maybe he believes he could be a sheep herder because his grandfather could do it. I mean, come on. It's ridiculous. It's not that easy. It is not that easy to step on a football field because you're athletic and you're in the NBA and you could play. Now, LeBron James, his body is built for the NFL. Does that mean that LeBron James could put on cleats and get on a football field and outplay a corner when he's playing tight end or wide receiver? There's no way. You put Sauce Gardner on LeBron James, no matter how athletic he is, there's no way he's catching that ball. No matter how athletic and how big and strong he is, he's not going to outplay on the field a guy that's been playing that position practically since he's played Pee Wee football. It just doesn't happen. He's the best of the best, just like LeBron James. Do you think in any thought in his mind, in Sauce Gardner's mind, that he can get on a basketball court and beat LeBron James one-on-one? No, because LeBron James is LeBron James. And there's no argument to that. And maybe he's stupid enough to believe that. So when he steps on the court, LeBron James will just kick his friggin' ass. There's no way, okay? And I'm sorry. I don't care who you are and whatever you guys believe. As good as these athletes have grown in their sports, these are different sports. It's like this. Aaron Judge is 6'8". He's powerful. He hits 332 and 50 to 60 home runs when healthy. It's like telling me because he's so athletic and he can see a baseball as well as he does and he can smack it out 300, 400 600 feet. He could step on a basketball court and beat an NBA player, not even a superstar, an NBA player one-on-one. It's not possible. It's just not. The 13th player on the bench would kick the hell out of him on a basketball court. And it's like telling you, Anthony Edwards, hey, you want to get up? Are you going to out-hit Aaron Judge at the plate? Could you hit more home runs than Aaron Judge? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's stupid. But Micah Parsons, when he says something, obviously it gravitates to people on conversations. And he's funny because he said the same thing about Zach Wilson. Last year, he said Jet fans should not be picking on Zach Wilson, that he's a good quarterback, that if the Jets give him a chance and give him a chance to develop, he could become one of the top young quarterbacks in the league. Zach Wilson's not even on a roster anymore.
Don't give it time. Maybe Jerry Jones will sign him for Micah because he believes in him.
It's ridiculous. He's not even on a roster. Couldn't even make the Broncos roster as a third-string quarterback.
Oh, that says a lot. Bo Nix, who, give him credit, he had a great preseason, and then Jarrett Stidham, you couldn't even make that team. Maybe Jerry Jones will go get him. You could go be the third string to the great Trey Lance.
That's embarrassing, by the way. That is embarrassing. When you were the second pick in the first round, what was it, 3-4 years ago, and you can't even make it as a third-string quarterback? I mean, Joe Douglas traded you for like a 5th-round draft pick, a 6th-round draft. I think Joe Douglas won on that trade because I think he got the CFL kid, the corner that they got and they drafted, who they believe could be a starter in the future.
They had to trading Zach Wilson for anything at that point. It's going to be.
I think it's so funny. It's so funny when Micah or any of these guys, even LeBron James, when he speaks, it gravitates to social media and everybody wants to talk about it and argue about it or even laugh about it. It's great. And that tells me that Micah Parsons is going to be a great radio guy. I think when Micah Parsons decides to step away from football, I think he's going to build a podcast. He's going to make millions and millions of dollars like the Kelsey brothers. All he has to do is find another personality to run his show, to be the host of the show, and let him be the other guy. If he can find that, I think Micah Parsons is he is going to have $200 million contract for whoever wants to sign his podcast because he's gravitating. Everything that he says is stupid, and it draws people to talk about it.
Yeah, and we were talking about it the last time we were talking about the Austin Rivers one. It's easier for like a basketball player in college that's bigger, a 6'9" player, like we talk about the tight ends, Tony Gonzalez, guys like that played Jimmy Graham, that played basketball to be able to do it. Anthony Edwards is a 6'4" bigger guard in a league that, yes, you still want to have some height, but you need to have the quickness at the wide receiver position and the running back position. A lot of these bigger bodied receivers that are drafted today are not as successful in the NFL if they're not as quick at the line of scrimmage. So what makes you think that Anthony Edwards can all of a sudden get quick at the line of scrimmage, learn a route tree in a complicated offense like the Cowboys, and be able to play at a high level?
He would never be able to be a wide receiver in a league right now unless he has 2 years of training. Maybe with his athletic ability and his background in football, maybe Anthony Edwards could become a good wide receiver, but he's going to need at least 2 years to put the time in and put his body through all that. So I don't think that's possible. As a running back, there's no way in hell. There's no way in hell he's going to be able to be a running back. The beating that he is going to have to put up with his body. The guy can't even stay on a basketball court. Would you think he could play football? The linebacker, the running backs get hit the most. The linebackers get hit the second most.
You got to give the all-time athleticism at least a shot on defense. Now, I have coached a long time at the high school level, and we always get these kids at high school that are just great athletes, but you know for sure there's no way they're going to remember the playbook. So you just tell them to react to the defense and just learn a couple of defensive calls.
This isn't high school, Fish. This
isn't.
I'm telling you,
I completely get it. So I think that is even more of the point, though. There's no possible way for Anthony Edwards to understand the level of complexity that they would have in an NFL offensive playbook. Defensively, as a safety, perhaps at 6'4", like a Cam Chancellor. Remember Cam Chancellor?
Yeah.
Just a thumper,
very well.
an athlete, Legion of Boom. I think that would be the position, the size, probably not 4.4 speed, but 4.6 you can get away with as a thumper. I think that would be the only spot I would try to put him if he tried to play in the NFL. If he's got elite athleticism, you never know. It would be a project, though. This is not a guy who could show up and play like Parsons and say.
Yeah, it's going to take
He's got to be crazy.
It's going to take 2 years. And by the time he's ready to do that, what is he, 25, 26? I mean, his career is practically done from the NFL. I mean, some of these guys don't even last till 26, 27 years old, especially strong safeties or safeties. I mean, Cam Chancellor, how many years did he play in the NFL? I think he played like 6 years and he was done. He retired at 28 years old, 29 years old. He didn't even last till 30 years old.
Let me look at the safety contracts now. How forever they took the side. Just as Jets legend Jamal Adams.
Let's be honest here. Cam Chancellor he was a big man. It wasn't just tall. He was big. I mean, that guy was a thumper. When he hit you, you heard it all the way up in the rafters. I mean, I don't know. I don't believe this. And I think it's ridiculous. But again, Micah Parsons, he likes to sell this and he wants to sell this on his podcast. So be it. Let's listen to it. It's stupid. It's dumb. And it's Micah. They should call it It's Stupid. It's Dumb. It's Micah. That should be the show.
Led by Anthony Edwards versus Zach Wilson wrestling.
It's stupid. It's dumb. It's Micah. I would love to have Micah Parsons on the show because I would attack on so many of his takes. I actually listen to his podcast. I think it's very funny. I think he's very funny, but very stupid. And there's some of the stuff, and it's good to be stupid. A lot of stuff that we talk about on the show, if it's offset of sports, and sometimes even sports, it's stupid. But there's a meaning and there's an understanding on why we're speaking about it. Micah, I don't really think he has a plan on any segments that he's talking about. He just talks about it, and it's just stupid. So that's the problem with Micah Parsons. But he's a sensational football player. There's no question that he is. You can't argue that. You can't take away his talent, which is just unhuman. And I think when you look at his talents, everybody was comparing him to Lawrence Taylor. He is not Lawrence Taylor. And I'm tired of hearing that. TJ Watt's not Lawrence Taylor. None of those guys. Myles Garrett, none of those guys are Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor was a different beast of a man. That guy was sniffing eight balls before the game and at halftime. And how he was playing in the game makes no sense to me, but he was ripping people's heads off, okay? The only person I can compare Lawrence Taylor to is the guy that I think was better than he was, and now it's Reggie White. That's the only guy that I would take over Lawrence Taylor. And Lawrence Taylor would tell you the same thing. I've met Lawrence 2-3 times, and Lawrence, both of the 2 times that I had a conversation, I said, who do you think was a better player? He says, nobody but one person was better than I was on a football field. And he said Reggie White. So, and Reggie White was sensational. Before he was in the NFL, he had 80 sacks. When he retired from the NFL, he had like 140 sacks. I mean, the guy had 200 sacks in his career. Ian Rappaport reports that the Broncos gave Patrick Surtain a 4-year, $96 million contract, making him the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. The deal is $77.5 million guaranteed and will average $24 million per year. His average annual value is $3 million per year, higher than the next player, which is Mr. Alexander from Green Bay. I laugh at this because the guy can't stay on a football field, making $21 million per year. There were several rumors during the draft that the Broncos wanted to use Surtain in a trade package to trade up for a quarterback, but went with Bo Nix at number 12 instead. In 3 NFL seasons, Surtain has been in a Pro Bowl twice, and a first-team All-Pro in 2022. I think Patrick Surtain is the second best corner in the NFL. I think he's the second best corner in the NFL. And the only person I think right now is better than him is Sauce Gardner. Because if you look at Sauce in the last 2 years and his numbers from top to bottom, even his PFF, Sauce is better than Surtain, but not by much. Patrick Surtain has been in the league longer. Patrick Surtain deserves all the accolades because remember, Patrick Surtain's father was a pretty good corner and pretty good football player too. So could you imagine? There are not many father and sons that play professional sports, and both of them were as talented as one another. And by the way, Patrick Surtain Sr. was a great player. Patrick Surtain Jr. is way better than his father. And it's crazy to think that. Patrick Surtain right now, we were talking about Hall of Famers and all that other stuff. At his position and what he has done in the NFL for the last 3 or 4 years, if he does it another year or two, Patrick Surtain is a Hall of Famer. He is that dominant. He is a shutdown corner. There are not many shutdown corners in the NFL. There's probably 5 of them. 5 shutdown corners. And then there are great corners after that. But I mean guys that you know that if they steps on a field and you tell them, hey, listen, I want you to control this side of the field. You're playing one-on-one the whole game. Patrick Surtain is one of those guys. And not every team has that. And like I said, I probably, if I go down the list, there's probably 5 of them that I could trust. The thing is, with the NFL and with these new rules and these new TV deals, these guys are going to make more and more money. Trent Williams knew San Francisco giving Brandon Ayuk that kind of money. He knew he was the next one up. And he knew that the 49ers were going to pay him because the 49ers need him. He knew the offensive line's weak. He knew that the offensive line could not hold up without him. And he knew that the Jets were playing him in week 1, and he needed to be on that offensive line. So what happens? They made sure a week before the season starts that he gets his contract. Patrick Surtain did not sit out in the offseason. He did not. He went to practices. He was in he played in a couple of preseason games on a couple of plays. Patrick Surtain knows and works really, really hard at his craft, and it's not only about money. Now, obviously, these players deserve all the money that they're getting, and I'm not saying that Patrick Surtain didn't want this money. Now, of course he wants the money, but Patrick Surtain also knows that to be the best, you got to be out there and you got to beat the best. And just because you believe you're the best, and just because you put up the numbers and say that you're the best, does not mean that you can't be training with the players and training with your teammates. If the organization believes in you, if the organization believes that you're the guy and you're going to be the guy that they want to build their team around, because he is their best player from top to bottom. And the Broncos have some good players. They do. Patrick Surtain is a top 3 player at his position. How many top 3 players at their positions are on the Broncos? I don't think there's any.
I don't know if there's any top 5s.
I don't think there's any. He is the best player by far on the Broncos. So when you heard the stories in the offseason that they're looking to trade up and they were going to trade Patrick Surtain, I thought they were nuts. I thought they were crazy. And the reason why is because they're paying Russell Wilson still. That's why. They're still paying Russell Wilson, and he's not even part of that squad.
Patrick Surtain's favorite receiver in practice.
I mean, that's true too. I mean, the fact is Patrick Surtain is one of the more nicer guys in the NFL. He doesn't really speak on the football field. I don't know if anybody's watched him play. He is a fantastic personality. That's why he's a captain. That's why he's one of the leaders of the Broncos. And if you ever watched him or even heard him speak, he's a gentleman. He's a good personality. And you could tell he's not only just a leader. If you're a youngster, you're a rookie, he's the guy you go up to and you work with, because Patrick Surtain's career going into the NFL was not easy. His first year, he didn't have the grades to play D1 football. What was that? What was the football before you go to Division I? You have to earn your way in. What is the JUCO? He played JUCO football. Patrick Surtain didn't play D1 football right off the bat. He had to earn his way, get his grades up before he played D1 football. So he had to go to JUCO. So did Jermaine Johnson. I don't know if anybody knows that story either. It's not easy to do what Patrick Surtain did, because guess what? He is in the shadow of his father. His father is one of the best players at his position in NFL history. And to be compared to your father and be looked at as a great player at your position like your father says a lot about who you are and what type of player you have become.
Yep. And also, think about the draft, too, at that time. There was also the Broncos rumors of they were going to go get a quarterback. They were going to go trade it for a quarterback that year, or they were going to draft Justin Fields if he fell to them. And they took Surtain instead. So there's going to be some pressure there. We took top talent, instead of a quarterback, and he's shown every bit of it. And you mentioned a lot of these top corners that maybe 3 years ago you would have said were top corners, like Jair Alexander, have had trouble staying healthy. You could say the same thing with guys like Denzel Ward, Marshawn Lattimore, and since then, Surtain has elevated his game and stayed healthy to be able to become the second best corner in the NFL and easily, consistently top 3 throughout his entire career. And for a Broncos team that really needs a lot, because they're rebuilding, they're lost a lot on defense, they lost a lot on offense. And like you said, they're paying Russell Wilson, so they're very cash strapped as it is. They still need a lot of these hits, so they're being able to pay some of the key players they already have. They have a couple good offensive linemen, but they're not top 3 offensive linemen, like top 3 corner like Surtain is. And that's why you need to lock down your top players to be able to rebuild around those guys, especially at the corner position, which is very hard to find in today's NFL. In a passing league, in a division with Patrick Mahomes in it, in a division in an AFC that has a lot of good quarterbacks, no matter how fast the Broncos rebuild is, you're going to need a player like that, a young
He's
player
in the
like
same
that.
division as Patrick Mahomes, okay? You need Patrick Surtain, okay? And the only thing that I could say about Patrick Surtain over the last 2 years is he's up and down with his health. That's the only thing I could say about Patrick Surtain. But when he's on the football field, he's fantastic. He is a fantastic talent. And again, when you look back, father and son, how many father and son really translate and become both of them become superstars and probably both of them Surtain Sr. is a Hall of Famer, I think, or he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
He should be. I don't know. He's probably running out of eligibility.
But he'll make it to the Hall of Fame. He's definitely going to get into the Hall of Fame. He was a great player at in the NFL. And his son right now is one of the elite corners. He's been one of the elite corners. And I've heard many people take him over Sauce Gardner.
Mm-hmm.
So it just tells you how great of a player he was. I watched him play college ball when he played for Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
He was a great player. He went, and remember, I said this, high school, he just didn't have the grades. He had to go to JUCO. And after that, he played for Alabama for 2 years. Then he was a top draft pick in the first round. He had to earn his way to the NFL. And to be as good as he is in the NFL, in an NFL with so many good, talented teams, it's absolutely amazing. It's sensational to watch, and he deserves a lot of credit because he's worked very, very hard to get where he is.
The other thing that's very impressive, too, is 3 different defensive coordinators he's played with as well. Vic Fangio, that was his last year as a head coach with the Broncos, was his rookie year. And then they went to Vance Joseph, or they went to Ijo Rivero. Then he leaves for the Panthers. Then they go back to Vance Joseph, with all the Broncos fans hate because of how bad he was as a head coach. 3 different seasons, he's been elite. And now this past year was probably his worst of the 3 seasons, but that doesn't mean he wasn't a top 10 corner last year with the way he played and how much time the Broncos were on the field because they had no offense.
As far as I'm concerned, if you look at PFF, he was a top 5 corner in the NFL last year. And if that's an off season and you're a top 5 corner and you didn't have the season that you had the year before, I take that in a heartbeat. And that's why he got the money that he got, because of that.
Think about what happened to that Broncos team last year. Didn't they get blown out by Miami like 70 to something? Yep. That's the most humbling thing that can happen to a guy, an elite defensive player on a team. He must have really, really took his lumps. And I guarantee you that 5th ranking, a lot of it has to do with that game. And it was really bad for that team. And they really fought back, I thought, second half of the year, at least on the defensive side of the ball. You were mentioning the families, the father-son combos, and I was trying to write some down. Obviously, Arch Manning, Peyton, and Eli is the one that comes to mind for football. Mm-hmm. Hockey, I got Brett and Bobby Hull, and baseball, Barry and Bobby Bonds are the ones that I remember that were Hall of Fame caliber
Bobby Bonds
guys.
Wasn't great. He was an okay baseball player. Barry's, otherworldly.
Wasn't he Hall of Fame? I
No,
Bobby was Hall of Fame.
Bobby Bonds, no, he was not a Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame.
Should be. Will never be because of the stupid
Bobby Bonds was not in the Hall of Fame.
No, 1,886 hits, 332 home runs. Still pretty good. Similar to like Ken Griffey Jr., Ken Griffey Sr. And in basketball, Bronny?
No, please. Austin Rivers and Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers wasn't
Austin
even a Hall of
Rivers?
Famer. Oh, please.
Melo's kid, maybe Melo's kid's going to be good. They say Melo's kid's good,
Melo.
For basketball. We'll see.
We all know about Melo. Can't get over the hump. Can't win championships. Yeah, he's going to the Hall of Fame because of his offensive ability, because he was a ball hog. That's why. Isolation. Here it comes. Carmelo Anthony. The ISO was built around Carmelo Anthony. Yeah. The name ISO and isolate was Carmelo Anthony. When you hear isolation, you think Carmelo Anthony. That's it.
And I mean, the last thing, I love Melo, but let's just say there wasn't exactly a winning way, especially after he lost a step. It was just a disaster. He went downhill so quickly. You mentioned the trade during the draft that they were floating Surtain's name around, and I also thought that was really surprising, because if you're going to trade Surtain, you're just starting over from scratch, because that's like the left tackle, the star pass rusher, the quarterback, and then after that, it's the lockdown corner. We did the all-22 draft. That's how they weighted the positions, right? On what were the most important in the league. That's what you're not giving rid of this guy unless you're literally starting over from scratch. So the Broncos we're basically saying maybe we should start over from scratch this offseason. And the only time that I've ever heard of a guy like that being traded is also a Broncos trade, which was Champ Bailey for Clinton Portis all those years ago when the running back was still valued high, which, of course, that deal would never happen today with the way they value the running back. But it would have to be a difference maker. At today's comparison, it would have to be a left tackle, a D end, maybe like with the best off-ball linebacker in the league. I don't really know what you would trade him for. It doesn't make sense to me why you would do that. Yeah, I agree.
NFL Network's Tom Pelissaro reports that the Jets have given Michael Carter a 3-year, $30.75 million extension. The deal includes $19 million guaranteed, $3 million in incentives. Carter will play on the last year of his rookie contract, worth about $3.3 million, and the extension will begin in 2025. Carter becomes the second highest paid slot cornerback in the NFL, only behind Bills' Taron Johnson. Carter had a Pro Football Focus grade of 80.4 and a coverage grade of 83.3 last season. The Jets also restructured Quincy Williams and Tyler Conklin's contract and now have $9.25 million in cap space as they try to sign Hassan Reddick. Oh, man, the New York Jets. And by the way, Michael Carter, well-deserved. This guy is probably the best slot cornerback in the NFL. I really do believe that. And not because I'm a Jet fan. This guy, remember, he was a 4th-round draft pick. And a lot of Jet fans, they didn't even know who he was. They knew the running back, Michael Carter, but they had no idea of who Michael Carter II was. He played for Duke. I watched him. I got a chance to get to know who he was because he played with Daniel Jones. And to me, the way he developed over the last couple of years and how he's understood the game and really the speed of the game as quick as he has as a 4th-round draft pick, it's pretty amazing. It's one of the biggest steals for Joe Douglas. If you really look at all the draft picks that Joe Douglas has drafted over the last couple of years, and there's a lot of them really stands out and they're good. I mean, Sauce Gardner was a 1st-round draft pick. Garrett Wilson was a 1st-round draft pick. Elijah Vera Tucker was a 1st-round draft pick. Breece Hall was a 2nd-round draft pick. We can go on and on and on and on and on. When you find guys in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, you know what you're doing. And when you have Michael Carter II, who's developed into the best slot corner in the NFL, it's pretty amazing. And this is, I believe, the best trio in the NFL. And that's not because I'm a Jet fan. Again, Sauce Gardner is arguably the best corner in the NFL. You can argue it. DJ Reed is a top 10 corner in the NFL, and he's been that for the last 2 seasons with the Jets. And Michael Carter in the last 2 seasons has been in the top 15. The year before, he was in the top 15. Last year, he was in the top 20. You have 3 corners right now, 3 DBs that are in the top 20 in the NFL right now. That's unheard of. It's unheard of. And that's why teams should not be scoring on the Jets this year, especially not throwing the ball down the field. If this defense can get at the quarterback and put pressure at the quarterback, this defense could be not only elite, could be the best defense in the NFL. When you look at the great defenses right now in the NFL, and let's go through them. Kansas City last year was the 3rd best defense in the NFL. Why were they good? I don't know. Snead was pretty good. McDuffie was pretty good. They had a good tandem of, corners. Their safety play, one of their safeties was a Pro Bowl player. Their secondary was elite. That's why they were the 3rd best defense in the league. San Francisco, where were they ranked? 2nd, 1st? Let's look at their defense. They have 2 quality defensive players at the corner position. They have an all-pro safety who got hurt last year. But when he's healthy, you have an all-pro safety at that level. You have Ward, who was a Pro Bowl player, is a borderline Pro Bowl player. And when you have that kind of defense in your secondary, you are going to be elite. That's 2 teams in the top 3 that have elite secondaries. Who was the number 1 defense last year?
The Browns.
The Browns. Let's look at their secondary. I mean, they just paid their best corner, Ward, a lot of money. They paid him a lot of money. And over the last couple of years, Ward has been a top 10 corner. And their corner depth is probably as good as anybody in the NFL. Now, they don't have elite, but they have so much depth. And that's why they're good. Baltimore, go look at their secondary. It's pretty damn good.
They just drafted a first-round corner this year.
Hamilton's one of the best safeties in the league. I mean, you have to have good secondaries where you could play one-on-one coverage, where you could bring up safeties and use those safeties in the middle of the field or use them as spies for the quarterbacks that can run outside of the pocket.
You were saying saucing Surtain number 1 and number 2. Marlon Humphrey for the Ravens might be number 3.
Michael Carter getting this money. First of all, I as much as you look at what he's making, that's not a lot of money for a corner. It really isn't. And to me, if they lose Sauce or even DJ Reed, you could really put Michael Carter on as your second tier wide receiver, your second guy. I mean, second corner. He doesn't have to play in the slot. He's better in the slot. He fits in the slot. But you could put him on the outside. I've seen Michael Carter play on the outside. He's got the speed. He's got the ability. His ball hawking skills are very, very good. He could play. I mean, DJ Reed, he's the same size as DJ Reed. DJ Reed is not a big man.
No,
he's not. He's athletic. He can jump. Same thing with Michael Carter. And DJ Reed's making a lot more money than Michael Carter.
Reed played a lot of slot in Seattle. That's how he got that contract.
So that's where I'm coming at right here with this. Michael Carter actually got a contract that's affordable for the New York Jets. The Jets win on this deal. This is a good deal because if DJ Reed, the Jets decide to drop him in the offseason, they could. They might not want to pay him. Or I think he's on his last year of his contract. Yeah. They might not want to bring him back. They could put Michael Carter on the other side, and you're only paying him $30.75 million. That's a pretty good deal. That's a steal for your second corner.
And again, you also look at it, I was talking about on Tuesday, how much the Jets defense plays a lot of nickel. Like Michael Carter coming in and like even playing the slot or playing the outside, he's still going to get very similar reps either way, as long as they play a lot of nickel like it is. And I was worried that the Jets would not be able to cater to that kind of
Speedy, there was a lot of people telling me that Michael Carter, if he went to free agency, some of these people believe that he could be a number 1 on a team.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, the size would be a question mark with him, but his speed and even his length for his size is still very good, where it's interesting to see if you were able to transform to an outside corner at a more higher sample size, how well he'd be able to do it. But obviously on the Jets, he doesn't need to do it because of the corner depth that he has around them. And the secondary play, the linebacker play that the Jets have, they don't need to force his hand. And that's what made that contract dilemma very tricky. If he were to hit free agency, would he have gotten that money elsewhere where they could trust him as a number 1 corner to be paid like a number 1 corner?
Did anybody believe that Christian Kirk was going to be as good of a wide receiver as he is right now? And he got that big contract. I was one of them that was laughing at it. Sure. And when Christian Kirk is on the field, he's pretty damn good. And he's small. And I remember when he was playing for Arizona, he had a great season, and he gets a $75 million, $78 million contract from the Jaguars. And they said, the Jaguars are reaching. And then the guy is a Pro Bowl player, borderline all-pro player his first year with the Jaguars.
Which essentially reset the wide receiver market because then 4 other receivers that offseason were either demanding trades or demanding new contracts. A.J. Brown was the only one that got traded, but then DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, and Terry McLaurin all got new contracts.
I'm just saying, to me, you don't know what they're going to do unless they're asked to play that position. And I'm not saying that Michael Carter can't play as the number 1 guy. Because last year, at some points of the season, he was the number 2 guy. They put him on the outside, and he was really, really good. So if they lose DJ Reed, and they could, now DJ Reed could take less money to come back with the Jets next year and try to win a Super Bowl if the Jets fall short. If that happens, which I don't see DJ Reed doing that because he still has a lot left in him, I think DJ Reed could play another 2 years at the top of his game if he stays healthy. So the Jets aren't going to be able to pay him. So he's gone. I move Michael Carter to that second spot and draft a slot guy because it's easier to find a slot guy than it is to find a second guy on the other side. And we know Michael Carter could do that. So I'm going to tell you guys this right now. When you look at this contract, this is a steal from Joe Douglas, an absolute steal at the corner position.
Yeah, and again, there might be similar level of snap counts too to what you're going to be able to see with the Jets, with DJ Reed and Michael Carter too, and it gives the Jets the ability.
And by the way, they drafted the CFL kid, and he's probably a future slot guy.
Yeah,
I forget his name.
It's interesting because they also have a lot of hybrid safeties they could try to make work to, even if they wanted to experiment with Michael Carter outside too, because he has good length for his size as well. And now you're getting him on a contract of just under $11 million, which, like you said, is the second highest for slot corner, but it's still much of an emphasis.
Stiggers. That's his name.
Yeah. It's just still much of an emphasis in today's game with
Quantez Stiggers.
All the three receiver sets, all the bunch formations that you've seen ever since kind of the Rams started to rebirth that kind of thing. And now you're seeing a lot of other teams do it. You need that kind of thing. It's today's game. And if the snap counts are very similar, it still may end up being obviously Sauce Gardner's the best corner, but it still may end up being just as good of the value of what you need at that position right there. Because we've seen teams, sometimes their slot corner is their best corner. We were talking about Taron Johnson being the highest paid for the Bills. He probably is their best corner on the Bills.
Just
roster.
think about this. And we speak about Sauce Gardner when he gets his contract. You know what Sauce Gardner is going to make when he becomes available, or he becomes a free agent, or the Jets try to extend him? This guy's going to make 140 million. 150 million. When these corners, all these corners are making, now you see 96 million go to Patrick Surtain. He's the highest paid. By the time Sauce Gardner becomes a free agent or says he wants an extension, that could be 2 years from now, Sauce Gardner's going to get $120 million, $130 million. He's going to get a lot of money. And you look at a guy like Michael Carter, he's not Sauce Gardner, but if he's just a little bit under, or even two spots under Sauce Gardner, and you're paying him $30 million for the next 3 years, it's a steal. It's an absolute steal for the New York Jets. It's a great deal. And I loved it when I heard it today, and I saw it get posted up on Jets.com. I loved it because I know what's going to happen. DJ Reed is not going to be there next year. They're going to move Michael Carter to the outside, and they're going to bring Stingers, and Stingers is going to be he is going to be the slot guy. It makes a lot of sense. And the Jets love this kid, Stingers. They love him. And they were very surprised he fell to the 6th round as far as he did. He's the first CFL player to ever be drafted from the CFL. And if you know the story in the background of this kid decided not to play college football because of his father's death. And he was going to step away from football. And then he decided, somebody pushed him. He goes to play in the CFL for his first year as a rookie. He was one of the defensive players of the year. I think he was runner-up for defensive player of the year, if I'm not mistaken. He was defensive rookie of the year. I mean, he had how many interceptions? I think he had like 5 or 6 interceptions, in the CFL that year. I mean, the kid, the Jets, and I'll say this. As far as corners concerned, and what Joe Douglas has drafted over the last couple of years, he's been pretty right on the corners that he's been drafting. So they've found corners in all different parts of the rounds, and they've been easy guys that you can put in and fill in the slot if somebody goes down. The Jets have never had a problem finding corners to fill in. Never. It's the offensive lineman, and it's finding a pass rusher, which they're horrible at finding, and quarterback. Oh, God, horrible at that. So
this might be the best move Douglas has made as GM, in my opinion. Like you said, we haven't even commented on how that might save money for them this year. Speedy, I'm not 100% sure how much the cap number comes down for Carter on this, because they need money for Hassan Reddick. And if they're going to get Hassan Reddick,
it doesn't start until next year.
Well, they restructured Quincy Williams and Tyler Conklin, and right now they're already the contract for JJ Redick is $18 million, so they're paying him out of that right now, even though he's losing money. So if they give him $9 million, it's about the money that they have left to pay him the money that he's looking for this year. So and that's probably why they renegotiate Quincy Williams and Tyler Conklin. And I know Jeff fans want to see, there's a wide receiver that could become available at the trade deadline. I don't know how that's going to work. I mean, the Jets could make it work, but it's crazy to think that Adams could become available and they move $20-something million to that, that team too, that only has $9 million to spend left this season. So, but I think that $9.25 million, because of the restructure of Quincy Williams and Tyler Conklin, is going to go to Hassan Reddick. I think they're trying to figure out how they can negotiate it and give him 1 year, and that's this year, and then he becomes a free agent.
Yeah, and they could play around now with Carter and add void years if they have to and save some more money because in this extension. That's what I was trying to point at. There's a name, though. We were talking about undersized corners, and as you know, a Jet fan, Errol, I'm old enough to remember Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator of the Lions. Aaron Glenn was 5'8", 5'9".
His favorite player growing up. His favorite player. By the way, he's the defensive coordinator for who? The Lions.
That guy was able to do plenty on the outside, play inside, move him around. That's something that a lot of players you get pigeonholed as a slot corner. But if you could play, press coverage, if you were strong enough, if you can turn your hips, you could cover these bigger guys. Maybe you're not going to get put up against like a 6'4" red zone threat. So you play on the other side of the ball where you have Sauce Gardner playing their best guy. This could be an absolute coup for the Jets if this Stiggers guy works out in the slot. They save the money for the next 2 years on Carter so that they pay him like a slot corner when he should be getting paid probably almost double. And if he's that good. And that's just probably the best thing. And if they can get Reddick fit in with all of it, what a great job by Douglas up against it with only a couple of days before the season. That's really an impressive thing.
They're definitely going to bring Reddick in. There's no way Reddick's sitting out for the season. The Jets already came out and said they're not trading him. They're not moving him. So the Jets have plans to bring in a guy like Hassan Reddick to fit this defense. And if you have Jermaine Johnson on one side and Hassan Reddick on the other, you have two edge rushers that could put pressure on the quarterback. And like I said, this could be as elite of a defense as we've seen in the NFL in the last 5 years. We know what the Jets did last year with so many weaknesses. They didn't have an edge rusher last year, and they still were a top 5, top 6 defense. And now you have Hassan Reddick and Jermaine Johnson, who put on, 22 pounds of muscle this offseason. They said, I don't know if anybody's seen what Jermaine Johnson looks like. The guy, you can see he put on a lot of weight. He's fantastic. He looks fantastic. He really does. And by the way, he's a fellow Florida State Seminole. So everybody knows I love Jermaine Johnson. So
let me add one last thing, because you mentioned Johnson and Reddick as being the pass rush element to help out Sauce Gardner. You mentioned the top 3 defenses last year. 49ers pass rushers all over the place, Bosa specifically.
Yep.
Second, Chiefs, Chris Jones, best 3-tech pass rusher in the game. And Browns, we all know, defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett, was going to be the next pass rusher that makes these corners better. That's what it is. It's a combination of getting there so the quarterback doesn't have time for the routes to develop and the corners being able to hawk it down. Anyone is going to have trouble covering for 7 seconds. I don't care if you're Sauce Gardner or not. But if you got a pass rush, he only has to cover for half that, and he's going to cover. And that's the game.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun year if the Jets could stay healthy and they get Hassan Reddick on the field. This I'm telling you. This could be the best, not only the best defense in the NFL this year, could be one of the best defenses we've seen in the last 5 years. That's how good they are. Their secondary, I mean, they got Clark back. I mean, this is a secondary that can get at you. Now they can stop the run. Clark is a good run stopper. I mean, they've got guys that are very strong in so many aspects of the game. And I think this defense, run by C.J. Mosley, and very underrated, and took less money again this year to stay with the Jets, only tells me that he believes in this team and believes that he can win a Super Bowl with this team. ESPN, Jordan Rannon, reports that Brian Daboll will take over full-time offensive play calling duties for this season. Daboll declined to answer any specific reasons for taking play calling away from Mike Kafka, who has been a primary play caller since Daboll took over as head coach in 2022. Daboll was under fire last season for constantly taking play calling duties away from Kafka and giving them to quarterback coach Shea, what is his name? Tierney. Sometimes I'm Shea Tierney. Sometimes during a game, the Giants averaged 6.9 air yards per pass last season, and Daniel Jones averaged 5.7. Both ranked 25th in the NFL last season. The Giants' offense was 30th in points per game, 29th in yards per game. Among 17 NFL head coaches that are offensive-minded, Daboll becomes the 14th to be full-time play caller. Brian Daboll is on the hot seat. He is on the hot seat this year. I know everybody says he won Coach of the year before. We've seen this before. Bruce Arians, remember him? He was Coach of the Year with Indianapolis. Indianapolis decides they bring back their other coach, and he goes elsewhere, and he wins Coach of the Year elsewhere with Arizona. I'm just saying, Daboll is on the hot seat because he doesn't get along with his coaches. He doesn't get along with some of the players. And if you can see what's going on right now at Hard Knocks, he has a GM that absolutely knows nothing about football. I'm just speaking the truth. I know there's a lot of Giant fans that love Joe Schoen. I do not like what I've seen what Joe Schoen has done over the last 2 seasons. I don't like it. And he gave Daniel Jones $40 million. I still like Daniel Jones. What has he given Daniel Jones? And now Brian Daboll has no excuses because now he has a number 1 wide receiver. Malik Neighbors is a pure number 1 wide receiver with speed on the outside. You could put him in a slot. He should be another Justin Jefferson for them. A Jamar Chase. He's that good. I don't think he's Justin Jefferson good, but he's good. The fact is, when you're taking play calling away from Mike Kafka, it only tells me one thing. You don't trust your coaches. Robert Saleh, we all know about that with the Jets. He's got 3 coaches calling the offensive plays now this year. It's not just him. It's 3 other guys. It's a problem. And now you could see why these coaches and why all these other guys, Wink Martindale deciding to part ways with the Giants in the offseason. Why? Brian Dable's the one who hired him. He left. The defense was one of the better defenses in the second half of the season. Wink Martindale goes to coach as a college defensive coordinator because he wanted nothing to do with Brian Dable.
You'd rather go for a cheating college program.
I mean, it's a problem. And Brian Dable, there is no excuses this year. You decided to part ways. Joe Shane decided to part ways with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, if he stays healthy, 1,600 all-purpose yards, easy. I see him breaking 1,900 yards with that Philadelphia offensive line. It's ridiculous. He's ridiculous. With weapons like A.J. Brown and Smith on the outside, it opens up the field for him. He's never had that with the Giants. All the Giant fans says, oh, he's washed up. Saquon, washed up? What are you, nuts? Did you watch him last year? I mean, the Giants have nothing. He had a third-string quarterback, DeVito, whatever his name is. I mean, hangs out in the clubs in the Hamptons, enjoying himself with his money. He needs to stick that up his ass. I'm going to tell you this right now. The Giants are going to regret not signing Saquon Barkley. They're going to regret it. And Dable better open his eyes and make one of these guys, their tight end that they drafted from Penn State, he better turn him into a star really, really early in the season because they got nothing but Malik Neighbors. I don't want to hear about Slayton, Darius Slayton. Oh, he's good wide receiver. Good wide receiver. People were comparing him to Odell Beckham a couple of years ago. What are they, nuts? He's not Odell Beckham. He's not Odell Beckham's stepchild.
He's not Odell Beckham now.
He's not anywhere close to Odell Beckham. And if you're a Giant fan, when you're hearing that Dable is taking play calling away from his offense, it shows he has no trust in his coaching. He has no trust in some of his players. And what he's going to do is he's going to feed the ball to Malik Neighbors all season long. I'm willing to bet you guys, and whoever drafted Malik Neighbors, good job. Because Malik Neighbors is going to see the ball 15, 16 times a game. Because that's what he's going to be doing. He's going to be tossing the ball to Malik Neighbors. And teams are going to figure that out. They're going to double and triple team this guy, and they're going to make the other guys try to beat him. And there's no chance in hell the Giants are going to be able to do that. And this has nothing to do with me not being a Giant fan. The Giants were absolutely wrong what they did to Saquon Barkley. I've said this over and over again, and I hope he stuffs the football up their damn asses.
Quickly before we get our guest on, two things that Brian Dable has to figure out: the route tree of Jalen Hyatt and the versatility of Wan'Dale Robinson. If neither of those
don't even bring his name up. Get out of here.
Yeah,
Wan'Dale Robinson.
That's
what the hell has he done?
I'm not saying yes. I didn't.
He's
like
5'0". The guy can't stay on a football field. He's been in the league for 2 years. How many games
I didn't like
did
the
he
pick
play?
either.
How many games has he played? A second-round draft pick.
Yeah,
I know you like him, Fish.
Well, yeah.
They might have drafted him a little high, but I do like his versatility. I think
I wouldn't have drafted him in his third round. I mean, that's
he did
ridiculous.
trade down twice.
Oh,
but
stop.
I'll say this. And look, Shane. I think Shane's on a more of a hot seat than Dable. He didn't win executive of the year, but I think Shane's at it first. I think that Dable's just a really good play caller and saw that Kafka wasn't. Usually, I thought Kafka was good his first year calling plays, but as you know, the NFL, they got film on you now. And when they came back for the second year, he was completely flustered. He started doing things that are just common sense play caller things that he wasn't having routes on third down get to the sticks. Like he was calling plays where there was not a single route going to the sticks. I don't understand how you can call a play as an NFL coordinator on third down and not have anyone running to the sticks, having someone just clearing out routes. You really think that's going to work? And some flat route is like I was watching the old Chad Pennington Jets all over again to, dunk it down, hope that he could run after the catch, 3rd and 8, throw a 2-yard pass, 4th and 3, we'll punt. And
what
it
is
was
the
that
excuse?
kind of stuff.
What is the excuse in the middle of the season when it doesn't work with Brian Dable? I love Brian Dable. He's a good quarterback coach. We've seen what he's done for Josh Allen. Fantastic. But what has he done for Daniel Jones? What has he done? What have the Giants do for Daniel Jones? Everybody hates the guy. What have you given him? Oh, I'm sorry. Wan'Dale Robinson. Wonderful. What else do you want? Oh, Darius Slayton. Oh, these guys are great. On any other team, they're 4th or 5th guys. That's what they have on this team. It's garbage. Malik Neighbors is the only weapon the Giants have. And then they bring Motor. Oh, what a great move. We brought Motor. He played for the Texans. The Texans have weapons all over the field. What do the Giants have? Nothing. Nothing. They're going to stink this year. I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to stink. Giant fans, get ready for a terrible season because you're going to be looking for a quarterback, not because of Daniel Jones, because he's going to go somewhere else. He's going to be successful somewhere else. As we all know what happens to Jets quarterbacks. As I've said, Sam Darnold's going to have a great year this year with Minnesota because the Jets don't know how to develop a quarterback. The Giants made a huge mistake letting go of Saquon Barkley. Enough said. Dable, you could be a play caller. You could be a smack caller. You could be hanging out with the women on the sidelines. You can wear your Michael Jordan sneakers. You can wear, you could turn red and purple till you're blue in the face. It doesn't matter. You're going to stink anyways. All right. When we come back, I know he's been waiting. We will be talking to former 12-year NFL linebacker, our friend Chris Strath.